Hello and welcome to another IRT feature update, this time featuring patch 11.0 and the first raid in the War Within, Nerub'ar Palace. First of all, sorry about the UIs, the footage is taken from multiple different guilds during the War Within beta testing and was never intended for this purpose. I also want to preface that this was during the testing and development stage of the new boss modules, and since then multiple improvements and bug fixes have been made. Starting with the first new boss module for IRT is Ulgrax the Devourer, which also is the first boss of the raid. He will spawn webs which roots or stuns you depending on difficulty. He spawns a lot of them and does it 2 times per phase, so the room quickly gets filled up with webs, but these can be removed by one of his other abilities called Digestive Acid, which is a dispellable poison debuff which removes any webs that are within 7 yards of you and deals damage to other players in that range as well. The player with the debuff also takes ticking damage, so dispelling early is beneficial as long as they are in position. IRT lets users create a macro /IRT space boss action, and when pressing the macro, all classes that are able to dispel poison and players that toggled on that they want to see the spells in the options regardless of class, like myself, will be informed when the player is ready to be dispelled. The next new boss module is for Sikran, which covers 2 of his mechanics, the Face Blades and Decimate. In this fight, the boss targets 4 players with Face Blades, which charges them sequentially and leaves a ghost behind pulsating raid damage. On Mythic, if 2 players are within 8 yards of each other when being charged, the ghost immediately explodes and deals high raid damage instead. When the ghost eventually is removed by Decimate, it leaves a permanent pool on the floor, which acts as a soft enrage to the boss. So assigning positions of where to place the ghosts will help alleviate pressure from the raid. The Faceblade mechanic is a private aura, but thanks to IRT's new private aura magic feature introduced on Firak, IRT can still assign players to a position 1, 2, 3 or 4. Before going into how we use the numbers for positions, let me explain private aura magic. In the options of boss modules that has private auras, the raid leader or raid assistants can click Show Private Aura Magic. Doing so will show a grid of the raid temporarily before a private aura mechanic is about to happen. You can make the grid list players horizontally, vertically, or get a list view. You can also order the grid on specialization, which is saved per boss, and doing so was very useful on Firak and will be on Cuvesa as well, so that you do not have to focus your attention on the entire grid. In this grid, you will also be able to see all private auras on each player. By left-clicking on the grid, you are assigning players different things depending on the boss. On Sikran, you are assigning them the position 1, 2, 3 or 4 in the order you click the name on the frame. As a reference, on Firak you were assigning who should break out cages on blue and who should do it on red in just 2 clicks. So depending on the boss, IRT customizes the assignment of your click. Going back to Sikran, once the raid leader or raid assistant has clicked the 4 players with faceblades in Private Aura Magic, all those 4 players will get a pop-up on their screen showing their position, and they will also start saying their position in the say chat. In our guild, we decided that 1 is always to the most right of the area we're playing in at any given time, and 4 is the most left of that same area. IRT also assigns players for Decimate. Decimate creates a line between the boss and the player, which also extends behind the player and destroys any ghost it hits. IRT automatically assigns 1 player to the left, 1 player to the right, and 1 player as a backup. This is shown inside the info box, and the players assigned also say their position in the say chat. This is done automatically without private aura magic. The next boss module I want to talk about is Ovinax. The entire fight is about hatching the different eggs you can see on the screen in a controlled order. The boss targets 4 or 8 players with experimental dosage depending on difficulty. 4 on normal and heroic, 8 on mythic. When the debuff expires, it will hatch any eggs within 4 yards of the player. On mythic, 2 players are required for an egg to hatch. IRT will assign all players with the debuff to star, circle, diamond or triangle. prioritizing melee to the star and circled wall markers. This way, you can place wall markers ahead of each set of debuffs and make sure melee gets the closest eggs to the boss. What you don't see in this video, due to this being early development, is that all players affected will get a text on their screen saying which mark to go to and start saying it in the chat as well, so it's easy to identify anyone doing it wrong. You should also know that failing to hatch eggs will almost definitely lead to a wipe, making assignments like this necessary instead of just YOLOing it. IRT also helps out with the sticky web mechanic, similarly to the Ulgrax module shown previously. The boss targets a few players with a magic debuff, and when it expires or is dispelled, it roots anyone within 10 yards for 8 seconds and deals damage to them. So the users can use the same macro from Ulgrax, /IRT space boss action, which will cause all healers to get a text pop up on their screen of who is safe and ready to be dispelled. Again, this footage is from when this module was under development, so you do not see the text on the screen saying that the player is ready to be dispelled. The next boss module is for Kivesa, which has an ability called Assassination. This ability will spawn a ghost behind which will mimic the boss abilities. One of these abilities is Nether Rift, which pulls you towards a black hole and deals extreme amounts of damage if you're ever pulled in. Surrounding yourself with the rifts will negate the effect as you're being pulled in several directions. To achieve this, we're again using private aura magic to assign players either to the center of the room or the entrance. We had wall markers for each position, and based on the order that the raid leader or raid assistant clicks, the players will decide the marker they get. The players will get a text on their screen telling them which marker to go to, and will also start yelling that position in Say Chat. This was not implemented at the time of filming, unfortunately. The last boss module is for Silken Court, which in the final phase has an ability called Web Vortex, which pulls the entire raid towards the spider boss and webs everyone in pairs of 2. While webbed, you take ticking damage and you become slowed. However, you need to use this ability to stop the scarab from charging the wall a bit later. So 2 to 6 players, depending on difficulty, will need to keep their webs until this mechanic happens. You remove the web by running 30 yards apart. Who you're getting paired up with is random, so IRT is showing a list of players of which still has the web to help the raid leader call out who should keep their web for the charge. We also had a few players assigned to always instantly break their web, like monks and demon hunters that can quickly break it to make the list narrower and minimizing the amount of raid damage going out. This module was also in development at the time of filming, but all the names will show up in the IRT's info box. Moving to the general modules, all of them have been updated for Nerub'ar Palace, and a new one has been created called Raid Invite module. This module helps the raid leader invite everyone to the raid when the raid is about to start. By just selecting which ranks of the guild you want to invite and pressing the raid invite button, everyone that is online with these ranks will get invited cross-realm and cross-faction as well. The interrupt module has also been updated for the new bosses in Nerub'ar Palace. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy your progression in Nerub'ar Palace.